Hello everyone, welcome back to the second part of our little video series we've got here of your first mobile app that you'll actually use. In the last episode we got all the way to the point where we got a list that we can scroll through. Now what we need to do is grab hold of that floating and allow us to add our own items to the list. So I'm just going to go ahead and set up a quick page for that now. So I've just made a new blank page called new memory.dart, and in main.dart I've just set this page to be the new home page of our material app, just so that I can very easily see the changes that we make in real time using hot reload. So all I'm going to do is add a center widget to the body of this scaffold, and in this center widget is going to be a form, and this form is going to take in the item that we want to add to the list in our main.dart page. Now in this form widget, I'm just going to place a column in here, specify that the array that the children of the column will be of type widget, and then we'll place a text form field in this column. In this text form field, I'm just going to set the controller to be my controller, which is something I'd set up earlier. This is responsible for keeping track of the text that the user enters into the text form field, so that we can then validate the text that has been entered by the user into this text form field, and we'll eventually save that back to our Hive box. We need to provide this form with a key. So I'm just going to do that now, and you can see that we've already defined a final variable for that form key, and we'll just attach that here. And if we give this a hot reload, we should see this text form field appear on our page, which we do, with a hint text of what's on your mind. And you can see that as I start typing, that hint text disappears. That's just, it does exactly what it says in the tin. It's just to give the user a visual aid in what should be entered in that text form field. You could have whatever you want. For this application, I want to scope it around a memory tracker, so that's why I've went with what's on your mind. Now I'm just going to supply a validator to this text form field. Now it's in here that we can grab the value that's been passed in as the argument. In this instance, we've just named it value. So we can now perform some validation on it, and I'm going to add a quick if check around this to see if the value is empty, and if the value is empty, then we want to return looks like you never added a memory. Now what this will look like, I don't have any way of testing it right now because we don't have a button, but this will just enter this little error message of looks like you never added a memory underneath the form, which in our case would just be underneath this text form field. So I'm saying we don't have a button, but let's make one. So I'm just going to create a new widget over here, which will be a submit button, but it also allows us to perform some validation around it with this form key that I spoke about earlier. So now we have a button which I've just coloured purple, and we need to pass this an onPressed event. Now what this onPressed event is going to do is it's going to take the form key, perform the validation on it, which in our case the only validation we've provided this form is to make sure that the user has entered something, and if it passes the validation, then we'll go down one logic route, and if it doesn't, then as I pointed out earlier, the validation would fail and we would get that little error message that we previously defined showing underneath the form. So I'll just implement this onPressed event now. So now that we have some validation around adding a memory to the box so long as it passes the validation of the form, we need some sort of indication to the user that that action has actually happened. And we're going to do that through something called a snack bar. Now, a snack bar is just a small piece of text that pops in typically through the bottom of the screen that just gives the user some context around an action that's just happened, perhaps a failure, just a visual indication to the user that a certain piece of functionality or a certain action has happened. And for our purposes, we'll just make this snack bar say adding memory, and the user should only see this snack bar once our form validation has passed and the memory lands in the Hive box. Another important thing to remember is that if you make use of any stream controllers, which in our case is this text editing controller, you need to dispose of those. And we do that by calling myController or yourController variable name .clear. And we do that so that the app is no longer allocating memory to variables we no longer need, which also keeps the app as thin and light as possible. Now that we've made this submit button, we'll need to add it to the widget tree, otherwise all our work will be for nothing. So we'll just add that in underneath our text form field now, do a hot reload. Currently it's just a purple square because I never provided a label for it. So I can go ahead and do that now. And we do that by passing a text widget in as a child property of the elevated button. We'll just make it say submit. And when we press our submit button, it will run the associated code in our onPressed handler, which is adding the user input to the box. And I'll just make some small styling changes around the colours just to make the app consistent. And that's pretty much job done for this page. We'll see if we enter a piece of text here, just hello from this page, and click submit, we see that snack bar that pops up saying adding memory. And then likewise, if we enter nothing and try to hit submit, then we'll see that error message as it's failed our validation. And once we enter some text again, it says adding memory. Now the only thing is, currently the user is stuck on this page. They can continually add memories, they can continually fail the validation, but they can't currently go anywhere. So I'm just going to make two small additions to our onPressed event with the submit button. Firstly, I'm going to do myController.clear. So when the submit button is pressed, it's going to clear whatever text the user has entered. And then secondly, we're going to navigate the user back to the main page of the application. And we do that by calling pop on the navigator.of context. This just pops the current page off of the navigation stack, which then will cause the UI to show the main.dart page. And now all that's left to do is to set the home page of the app back to the main.dart page, and we can see if everything works. We'll perform a hot restart here, and we should see all our changes take place. And there we go, we can see all our entries into our Hive box, as well as the custom ones that we added while we were testing the new page. As well as this, we can hit the float in action button to add more memories. We can perform validation on those memories, and as long as the validation is passed, we'll get taken back to this page where we'll be able to see the memories being added to our list. And I've only just now realised that although we've added a new page and we've given the other page a way to come back to the main page, we've not actually given the user any way of getting to that new page, as the onPressed event of the float in action button was still just incrementing that counter. So what we'll do is we'll call navigator.of and then push the route that we want to go to, which in our case will be a material page route, which just accepts a builder, passes in the context, and we'll just point that material page route to our new widget. The final piece of functionality I'd like to add to this application is a way for the user to remove items from the list, in our case memories from our memory box. So the way I'm going to do that is through something called a dismiss widget. What this dismiss widget will do is allow the user to swipe in either direction to remove that item from the list. The dismiss widget is placed on each list tile, or each item in the list. It happens to be a list tile in our case. And what this will do is we'll remove that item from the list in memory, so whenever we reload the list, it will appear again. So to get around that and to actually remove the item that the user wishes to remove, we're going to also remove that from the Hive box. So I'll just quickly mock that together now and I'll show you the end result. So there we go. Run this now, and once I drag these memories away, they are being removed from the list as well as being removed from the Hive box, never to be seen again. So thanks very much for watching this small two-part series on creating your first mobile application that you'll actually use. This can be adapted in many different ways. It could just be a standard to-do list, it could be a memory box like we have here, it could be a gym tracker, it could be a meal tracker, it could be adapted in many different ways and fit whatever description you need it to. I'll be posting more regularly going forward. If you have any suggestions whatsoever, please leave them down below and I'll get to them. Thanks very much.